Tonight, a trip down memory lane through the power of social media.
A Facebook site featuring old pictures and items from Minneapolis' past has more than 10,000 followers, but it also might be telling us a lot about the future. Tom Lyden's back with that story. Tom?
You know, the reality is, guys, Minneapolis hasn't always been so great about protecting its past. Back in the 1960s, some 200 buildings were destroyed, all in this area near where we have the warehouse district today. It was about 60% of the old business district. What remains has become pretty precious, especially for those old enough to realize what we've lost, young enough to make sure it doesn't happen again.
The funny thing about nostalgia is how it makes you homesick, even when you're already home. That longing for the sights and sounds, the taste and smell of the distantly familiar.
From there to now, I like to go back to this, where it was smooth.
I've never been to the top of the Fauché.
For Jesse Jameson, the memories go back to when he was just 13 and took a bus from Brooklyn Park to the big city of Minneapolis.
Boy, it was just fantastic. You know, we just sat there looking around like this, for hours.
It was the beginning of his long Minneapolis love affair. And when his daughter told him about this new thing called Facebook, he found an outlet for his obsession, starting a Facebook page called Old Minneapolis, where people share pictures and memories of all things of the city of lakes, the lost diners and forgotten bars and restaurants, buildings gutted by fire or razed by ignorance, like the old Metropolitan Building, torn down in 1961, along with much of the old Gateway District, Minneapolis' own Skid Row.
Sometimes it takes a few years before you look back and realize that was a mistake.
Strolling the page, you'll discover a picture of the gay 90s, back when it was straight. Or stumble across a bill from old St. Mary's Hospital, a tonsillectomy for just $26. You'll see familiar faces and strangers too. Like the police mugshot of a mysterious young woman, an incarcerated Mona Lisa that launches 73 comments. What was her crime? What was her fate?
It's Minneapolis, a pretty young girl. I don't know, you just can't stop staring at it.
There's a little bit of everything here, but nothing after a particular date.
And I picked October 18th, 1988, the day that the destruction of the old Block E started.
It was a kind of turning point, Jameson believes, when the gritty gave way to the banal, a new urbanism that didn't have much in the way of new ideas.
There was places on the old Block E that weren't in the suburbs. And then when they rebuilt it, it was like, okay, a movie theater. There's movie theaters everywhere. A Borders bookstore. There's Borders everywhere. But there's no Moby Dicks everywhere. There's no Brady's or Rifle Sport.
Back in the days, it wasn't nothing like that. You could walk the streets clean. The police don't harass you.
Right, but I hear Moby Dicks used to be pretty bad.
Yeah, Moby Dicks used to be real bad. You know about Moby Dick?
And yet in these pictures, there's also a longing for a time that quite frankly never was. Back then, Hennepin Avenue was dirty, congested, and yes, there was a lot of crime back then too. But in these pictures of the past, many people also see perhaps the city of our future.
Nobody's a bigger fan of nostalgia than I am.
Patrick Coleman is head of acquisitions for the Minnesota Historical Society. More than a trip down memory lane, he thinks old Minneapolis also offers a cautionary tale.
Why? Why isn't that gas station on that corner anymore? Or why aren't these streetcar intersections with all the lively little businesses there?
Nowhere is that more evident than North Minneapolis, where small mom-and-pop stores have simply vanished.
They were like a neighborhood downtown. A lot of those fabulous little business districts were on the intersection of trolley line, and when the streetcars went away, the economy for those kind of folded.
In just 2 years, Jameson's page has more than 10,000 likes and some diehard Facebook friends.
Who's your favorite friend?
Alan Freed, definitely.
The city looked much bigger, had a much bigger city feel than it has today.
Alan Freed is now a radio producer in Los Angeles who finds himself homesick for a city that's gone.
It's interesting to look at Minneapolis in the 30s, 40s, 20s, 50s when it hit its population peak and go, wow, that almost looked like New York. When the car came into play, when the trolleys were killed off in '54, yes, it changed the city dramatically.
And yet everything old is suddenly new again. Today there's talk of bringing back those streetcars, of getting people out of the skyways and back down on the street. And yet the melancholy for our past seems almost contagious.
Them was the good old days.
Perhaps one day we'll be sentimental about a Starbucks or wistful for a long ago McDonald's. Who knows? But all this reminiscing for old Minneapolis begs one final, inevitable question. What about that city across the river?
Somebody's got to start one for St. Paul. I mean, it's a much better city.
Says the kid who grew up on West 7th.
This is old Minneapolis. Minneapolis only. Go to Old St. Paul if you want to post pictures.
I'm sure someone's starting a site right now. You can literally spend hours on this Facebook page. I know we have in the newsroom, and it seems everyone finds something that really captures their imagination. This is one of my favorites, a picture of Ernie Pessis, who owned a place called the State Bar that was gutted by fire, likely arson in 1950, and there he is holding the fire insurance bill he forgot to mail in.
Oh.
He would go on to open Sutton's, the first gay bar in Minneapolis, and that is just one of the many gems that we have here. And it's really an incredible website. It's fun to do. Do you remember the old Gateway District much?
I do remember some of the buildings down there because we would take a field trip every year. You know, and of course it meant going to the top of the Fauché, which was the tallest building then. I guess I'm dating myself. But I don't remember the one building that they had to tear down because there were so many vagrants. Well,
in that area. There were many. I mean, you know, they talk about rebuilding the old Gateway District. You know, there was a great plaza there. The problem is it invited, you know, a lot of transients. And, you know, that's always the dilemma in urban planning. How do you have a public plaza but not have people, you know, hanging out in it? So I think we'll be revisiting that dilemma and many more. But, you know, some 200 buildings in that Gateway District were torn down.
And
you know,
thank goodness for this guy who logged all of the photos and everything.
Absolutely.
Because difficult to remember without that, to visualize.
I got to make a picture for the Minnesota Historical Society. They have a fantastic website if you go there. A very great search engine to look up photos in their database. And they were wonderful and they were very helpful.
And what do you expect the brother of the mayor of St. Paul to say?
I know.
They need to do a little history on St. Paul.
He looks like Chris Coleman, and also the columnist Nick Coleman, of course.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Thanks,
Awesome
Tom.
story.
Pretty cool.